Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at the 2024 presidential election, and I'll be doing another forecast review. This time I'll be taking a look at the Economist's model for the 2024 presidential election. And their model is very different from the FiveThirtyEight model that we previewed just yesterday. FiveThirtyEight had a very close race with Biden, a slight favorite, but their electoral map gave him exactly 270 electoral votes, so essentially about as close as close a race as you can get. The Economist, however, is predicting a Trump victory, him winning an average of 296 electoral votes. And when you actually map out the state-by-state probabilities that they give, it's more than that. He's winning 312 electoral votes. He's winning every swing state. So this is a very interesting model, and I will be upfront about the fact that I like this model less than I like the FiveThirtyEight model. Now, here are my broad thoughts on it. I think that that the map you see on your screen is consistent. I think that the margins you're getting across these states are congruent with each other. So, for example, if Trump was winning Ohio by 11, he's winning, Pennsylvania by 2, Michigan by 1, maybe. That is an outcome I could see happening. And if he is winning, if he's winning Georgia by 6, he's only down in Virginia by 2. So those outcomes are consistent because you'd normally expect Virginia to be about 8-9% to the left of Georgia, maybe a little less this year. And, Michigan, Ohio, 8, 9, 10-point gap there as well. So the margins are consistent, and I think that's the best part about this model. But beyond that, I'm not a huge fan of this. You'll notice that this map is just very favorable to Trump. He's winning every swing state, and he's actually closing the gap in a lot of, traditionally Democratic-leaning states like Virginia, New Mexico, New Hampshire. And on top of that, there are a lot of states that, were close or even voted for Biden in 2020 that aren't really competitive in this map. You'll notice Georgia, he's ahead by 6 there. He's ahead by 5 in North Carolina. He's ahead by 5 in Nevada. And that is a very striking outcome because in 2020, these states were very close. And broadly, I expect these states to be close. I think that North Carolina and Nevada, probably in the lean Republican column at this point. Georgia, to me, is still a toss-up, especially for November. So this is a very favorable map to Trump. But let's talk about it. So, just kind of start out with the swing states here. They're all going for Trump in this model. You'll see that they have 6 key races, rather. They actually don't have North Carolina as a key race, which I think is interesting. I think North Carolina you could definitely put in there. But regardless, Michigan, they say 40% chance roughly for Biden, and they have Donald Trump winning by 1.2%. They've had it back and forth between who's going to win the state, but Trump actually peaked in April, and he's kind of getting back up to a peak now. Regardless, Trump up by 1.2%. Wisconsin, it's similar. He's up by a little less there, but his chance of winning has actually been a lot more consistent in Wisconsin than it is right now. Pennsylvania, up by 1.4% there. Nevada is a lot less close. It's actually a 5% margin. So you'll see that the Rust Belt, these Midwestern states where Biden is polling okay, it's a lot closer, but we're, kind of the wheels are falling off for Biden in Nevada and Georgia. It's really not there. This model is a very poll-based model. It is a lot less, or it's a lot more straightforward than FiveThirtyEight's model. So it's a lot more simple, which I often appreciate. I actually like simpler models. I think the more complex and more variables your model incorporates, the worse it gets. But simple models, generally, a big fan of them. I think they're usually more accurate too. Regardless, FiveThirtyEight, not FiveThirtyEight, sorry, the Economist here, Biden down by 5 in Nevada. Wow, I really should be more careful here. And he's also down by 3.8% in Arizona, and then the chance of winning pretty consistently strong for Trump. You go to Georgia, it's even better for Trump. He has a 75% chance of winning, roughly. Let's see, 3 and 4, 76%. And he is winning by 6 points, so it's not even a very close race in the two-party vote share. So that is very, very interesting to me. So, again, all the swing states, they're leaning towards Trump. In some states like Georgia and Nevada, not even really competitive or within the margin of error. So that's the first thing you'll notice. And then the one thing I also want to talk about here is just what I think are very bad results, not just in terms of likelihood in some blue-leaning states. So the first one is Minnesota. Minnesota is a state that I think could narrow up. I think it's going to be a 4-point margin at best for Trump, but they think that this state is more competitive than like Georgia, North Carolina, and Nevada. They think Trump has a 1 in 3 chance of winning here, and that he's only down by 2.8%. They think that this is a genuinely very close race. So that's the first thing I disagree with. And I don't really know how they're getting this, because the polls in Minnesota have been closer, but they still show a decent lead for Joe Biden. And so, again, like, this map looks very similar to the map you get if you just plugged in polling averages. So that's why, again, simple models good, but models that literally are just only influenced by the polls, not great. Although, again, I'm not going to like to say this is only a polls-based model. This is obviously a complicated mathematical model that does incorporate more data points than just the polls. But you can kind of tell that this is definitely, there's one factor definitely influencing the map that you're producing here. So Minnesota, that's an interesting one to me. Not the biggest fan of it, but it does get worse. Go to New Jersey. This is another one I noticed when I was filling out this map. And New Jersey's a close race. They think Biden is only going to win here by an average of, 6.8%? A 7-point race in New Jersey, a state that he won by 16 points in 2020, I believe. 7-point race. Really, really not great. Really, really not great. And so that, to me, is a bad sign for this model. Because, yes, this model is consistent. It shows a red wave hitting basically every state. It also doesn't make a lot of sense just based on the raw results. I don't think that New Jersey is going to be within 12, let alone 7. So that's like one of the bigger red flags here. And then go to New Mexico on the other end of the country, and they show a genuinely like toss-up-esque race here. Like, they think Donald Trump, just to go to the chances of winning, they think Donald Trump has a 23% chance of winning here. 1 in 4. That's what they say. And they have their median outcome being a 3-point margin. They think Biden's going to win New Mexico by less than 3%. Now, look, I'm a big believer in the New Mexico narrowing up theory. Like, I genuinely do think that New Mexico could swing towards Republicans a lot in the future. And I think Trump will do a couple points better here in 2024 than he did in 2020. But at the same time, a 3-point margin of victory to me, really not good. Really, really not good. So how'd they get this? It's likely that if this is, based on what I'm guessing here, a poll-based model, they're seeing the trends with Hispanic voters in the polls. They're saying, look, every poll in this country right now, or almost every poll in this country right now, has Donald Trump improving with Hispanic voters. And they applied that, and that's why they have a 13-point margin for Trump in Texas, which I haven't touched on yet, but I will touch on. That's why they have Trump ahead by so much in Nevada. That's why they have him within 3 points of winning New Mexico, because these are electorates that are heavily Hispanic, and if they genuinely are taking the numbers that he's getting in the polls and thinking they're going to apply to all these states, that explains why New Mexico, for example, would be close. Do I believe that? Not for a second. I'd be shocked if New Mexico's within even 5, let alone 3. But that's what they're getting. That's how they're getting it, is they're taking these polls, and a lot of these are demographic-based models, and they're saying, look, if Joe Biden is truly only winning Hispanic voters nationally by this amount, it means he's only going to win New Mexico by this amount, because New Mexico is obviously heavily influenced by the Hispanic population. So very, very interesting, very, very interesting numbers there. And then finally, I think one of the worst states here is Virginia. Virginia is a state that I am, getting pretty bullish on Biden, and that's not because I think Biden's going to win in a landslide, but just because of the fact that the consensus has moved so much towards Trump in the state, and this is crazy to me. They give Trump a 29% chance of winning Virginia, which is the same amount that they give Biden of winning the election. So they think that Biden winning the election would be as surprising or as likely as Trump winning Virginia. It's consistent. Again, they're showing a red wave across the country. At least the numbers add up and they make sense, in congruency with each other. But I don't like this result. This result to me is not realistic. And I said this in 2022. I said this in 2020. When you get models that give you really, really drastic results and really, really, outcomes that are really, really far at the end of one spectrum as their median, it's flawed. And again, this isn't like a crazy map. Like, if this happened on election day, I'd be a little surprised. But none of these states are that crazy. Like, they don't have California competitive. They don't have New York going red. But this is a map that is realistically on one of the, this is one of the worst realistic outcomes Joe Biden can get. And you could say, oh, well, if you think this is the median outcome for the model, in theory, Trump could win Virginia, he could win Minnesota, he could win New Mexico, he could win New Hampshire, and he could be within 5 points in New Jersey, Oregon, and Washington. And yeah, sure, if you look at this model, that's the case. But do we really think that the average, this is the average outcome, and that there are 50% of outcomes are better for Trump than this, and that in those 50% of outcomes, he's likely winning Virginia, New Mexico, New Hampshire, Minnesota, coming close in Oregon, New Jersey, Connecticut, New York? No, I don't think that. I think that this race is a lot closer than that. And even if Trump's favored, which I think right now he is by a little bit, if he's favored, he's not favored by this much. There are not 50% of outcomes are just not worse for Biden than this. This is on the farther end of Trump victories. It is definitely better than the average outcome for Trump or the median outcome for Trump, and that's why that's my fundamental problem with this model is that you can if you assume that this is the average outcome in 100 simulations of the election, you cannot make 50 or 49 or 50 simulations that are better for Trump than this without dipping into crazy land. That's why I think this is a bad model. And look, they think it's going to be a Trump landslide. That's fine. They think that it is more likely than not that Trump wins by a lot. They think it is equally likely that Trump wins Virginia as Biden wins the country. That's fine. And the math is consistent. But you can't get the right answer for a problem if you set up the equation wrong, right? Like if this election is a word problem, they set it up wrong from step one, right? They did not set this equation up right, and they solved it right. I think the math, again, for the 10,000th time, it does check out. It's congruent, but I think they're fundamentally wrong, and that's why I'm not a fan of this model. So those are my thoughts. I think it's pretty clear what I think about this state, or about the state of this model. And you can also kind of tell that it is demographic based when you look at just the overall correlations, right? Like Virginia as a whole is demographically a lot more similar to, say, Michigan or Washington, which are states that are kind of in line with the country as a whole. I think Virginia and Washington might be a bit more diverse than the country as a whole. Michigan, a tiny bit less. But, most states, they're majority white, but have significant populations of voters of color. In Michigan, I think the state is 18% black and 12%, 18% Hispanic and 12% black, 6% Asian, if I recall correctly, from the 2020 census. Washington, I know less about because it's not a swing state and I haven't studied it as much, but I believe there is a significant population of Asian voters in Washington. So Virginia, it's more correlated to these states, which are states that are demographically similar to it. And then you go to California or Texas, which are states that are incredibly diverse, a bit less similar to Virginia. And so, the demographic-based model is a good one, but when you base it off polls that I think are flawed, it's not great. And this model is consistent in the same way that the 538's 2020 model was consistent. They showed an outcome that was very good for Biden. And this is actually kind of, the reverse 538 from 2020. They showed a map where Biden was winning by a lot nationwide. And yeah, the margins checked out, right? If he's winning Michigan by 8, then he's within 2 points in Ohio, because Michigan and Ohio are usually 9-10 points apart. That makes sense, right? But it doesn't matter how consistent your math is if you set up the equation wrong. And 538 in 2020 set up the equation wrong, and that's why their map was just off by a lot in every direction. And that's why I think this map could be off by a lot in every direction, or in every state by the same direction. 538, if you applied a 4.5 point swing towards Trump in every state, it would have been a pretty good model, or close to it. This, you could say the same thing. If Biden does 4% better in every state, then he would, I think, win this election, and you have a much more realistic outcome. So those are my overall thoughts. Again, let me know what you think about this model. Let me know whether you like it more or less than the 538 model that I previewed yesterday. Go watch that video if you haven't already. I think that it's an interesting comparison if you watch both these videos. And again, I'm always looking for new content. I have more time on my hands now, so I'm trying to post at least 5-6 times a week. So I'm happy to take your video suggestions. So with that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.